Hi, folks. It is me, not an Ellen Adair type person, but rather the Eric Gildy sort of person, welcoming you back to Take Me Into the Ballgame. Where is Ellen, you might be asking? Oh Lord, am I stuck with her derpy co-host for an entire episode? Is this even going to be worth listening to? Well, let me answer in reverse order. Yes. Also yes, and it's a secret. Actually, Ellen is away filming something. I can tell you that much. That leaves me with the reins. And we want to keep doing episodes, so we are going to try something today. Something this particular episode that we've been talking about doing for a while. And that's not me usurping the podcast and turning it into something different and following my secret wishes no matter what. This is something, and Ellen will tell you this herself.
Yeah, it's a stew of masculinity.
A little experiment that we are tentatively going to call the Take Me Into the Ballgame Replay Review.
Well, this is one reason that baseball put this in play, the replays, to get the call right.
That is, we are going to take a movie that we've already done and offer a fresh perspective on it. We're going to step outside of the comfort zone of these two actors who started a podcast about baseball movies in a world where we were not sure if there was baseball to be had. And so we're going to do that with a new person today. We've got some outside eyes. They are playful, deep, loving eyes. And those are the eyes of a gentleman I've known for many years at this point, an incredible actor, intrepid improviser, prolific podcast host, rabid consumer of all things art and pop culture, accomplished freestyle rapper, and all-around sports enthusiast, Scott Thomas. Scotty T, how are you?
I am so good. That is one of the kindest intros I've ever gotten.
Oh, nice.
I was
one of the kindest intros I've ever given.
I feel very lucky, and I was sitting here listening to you describe Replay Review and thinking I'm so lucky to help you pilot this version of the podcast. And then I thought, oh my God, in all my years being an actor and being a podcaster and being in anything, that makes this the very first pilot that I've ever booked. So
nice.
I'm finally booked and blessed. I did it. I'm going to update my manager the second this is over. I've booked a pilot.
You made it.
It's happened.
You have arrived.
I did it. Hey, look, Mom, I made it. In the words of Panic at the Disco.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So when I approached you about this,
yes,
this was in the midst of me going way down a rabbit hole that you so kindly pointed me to, involving baseball cards.
Yes.
And you have been recently, well, maybe not super recently, you've been kind of like in the thick of card collecting for a bit now, right?
Yeah, for a few months. Actually, I can't remember if I told you the story of how it really went from 5 to 11. It's a football adjacent story.
Oh, okay.
So I had been playing around with digital card collecting. I'd been enjoying that. Some people turned me on to that. And then I'd been having a craving for the physical cards. And
sure.
What really turned it to the next level was the NFL draft. I was supposed to be in Providence, Rhode Island, having a weekend with my partner, Marlo, and the NFL draft was night number one of our trip. And I have a ritual.
Very romantic.
What spells out romantic goals than a weekend getaway at a haunted hotel where one person watches a draft that the other person does not care about, and the other one takes care of the cats who are seeing ghosts, which is 100% a thing that happened the entire weekend.
This actually sounds incredible. I think that that's a pilot that you should write.
It's going to be the second pilot I ever book. One I wrote for myself about haunted cats.
Oh my God. Okay, so you're at the haunted hotel on the draft weekend.
Yes, well, and even before that, to prove the amount of mania I have for the draft, my partner wanted to do a Brooklyn garden hang with one of her best friends, which I fully supported. I also knew that I just, no matter what, had to be there for the start of the draft. So I went, honey, I love you so much, but I'm going to take the Amtrak up without you, and you can take the car and drive. And so it's already got this epic tint to it. My first time on major public transportation since the pandemic started. I'm in this hotel, and I ordered a 4-pack, and no dinner places were open in Providence. So I'm basically on beer and hopes of drafting a great player. And for the first time in Chicago Bears franchise history, we actually make a smart move during the draft. We
nice.
Traded up and got Justin Fields, the future of our franchise. And I'm not going to lie, I had tears rolling down my eyes. This is the quarterback I wanted. I never dreamed we got him.
I know nothing about football, but congratulations to you.
Thank you. I would describe him in baseball terms as a Wander Franco type. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. He's got that level of hype going. And this whole QB class is sort of like the idea of prospect-rich athletes entering the professional level, and all of them are quarterbacks. And he's my number one guy. He was coming out of college. He's got unbelievable intangibles. He just makes the game look effortless. He's really...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so where did cards factor into this?
Here's how. So I had an extra beer in celebration of us drafting Justin Fields. And then my partner arrives with cocktails that she's pre-mixed for us to enjoy. And so I wake up the next morning. I got us donuts. I'm feeling great. And my partner goes, "Are you okay?" I went, "Absolutely. Why?" And she went, "Well, last night it kind of seemed at the end of the evening like you had a little too much to drink." I went, "No, honestly, I think I feel fine. I feel great." Check my email. I've got an email from Panini, who makes cards. And I'm like, why is Panini emailing me?
Oh, no.
And I look, and they're like, "Thank you so much for purchasing a box of Panini Legacy 2021 football cards."
Oh, wow.
I turned to my partner. I was like, "I didn't order cards last night, did I?" And she went, "Oh, yeah. Before you went to bed, you pulled open your laptop, said, 'I've got to get a Justin Fields rookie,' bought an entire box of cards, closed the laptop, and passed out." And I was like,
you were screaming. You scared all the ghosts away.
and I was like, oh God, okay, well, I really hope I pull a Justin Fields rookie. And then, having ordered this box set, I sort of fell in love with the cards from afar. I had a great time ripping the box. I wound up getting another, and that brought me fully over into, hey, I collected baseball cards as a kid. Why don't I see what this is? And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you definitely hooked me, and I would buy a pack occasionally at a ballpark or whatever. But I think it was when you were showing me the Project 70 cards that Topps is doing that I really went all in. And then unfortunately, I was on an extended vacation to see family, and it became such a big decompression zone out thing for me to do card breaks. For people who don't know what that is, that's like people opening up large quantities of cards, and you basically bid on a particular team. Like, I'm going to get all of the Mets cards that come out of this. And it becomes a sort of gambling, really.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of money. I'm going to probably bleep this out, but I spent around
funky butt-loving
dollars.
Yes.
And Ellen and I were at a baseball game just a couple of days ago before she left.
Yes.
And I told her this very sheepishly, and she was like, "Oh, wow, okay." And she then smiled, and I was like, "But you know what? I know it's going to be okay." And she was like, "I'm proud of you for knowing that it's going to be okay." That seems like a big step for you, because I'm someone who can often catastrophize things.
Absolutely. Same.
So anyway, all of this is to say, we were talking about cards, other things, and this oh no, she's going to be away. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
You were the first person that I thought of. And I was not sure what movie you were going to choose, but in retrospect, it makes perfect sense. What are we here to talk about today?
We are here to talk about Daniel Stern's feature-length directing debut, Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year. Yes, that is one that we did a while ago. So this is a fun one to revisit and also fun to talk about with you as a fellow person who knows this film from childhood. It was one of the more interesting things about talking about this with Ellen is that this is a film that she did not see until adulthood.
Really?
And so it is so firmly a kids movie.
Yes.
That I think that there were aspects of her viewing of it that were like more fun as a result and some that were less fun as a result. So before we dig into the categories and the 20 to 80 scouting scale, all of that business that I'm suddenly responsible for, I'd love to just hear a little bit about sort of your Chicago sports fandom, like, because you're like a Chicago guy.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
And this movie is at the center of a lot of my fandom. Sort of like, if fandom is a galaxy, this movie is it's not one of the planets that's in orbit, but it's the moon to the Cubs planet because...
Nice.
So I had a horrible habit as a child of telling people I was in movies I wasn't. I would just flat out lie about it when I was getting bullied. And
that's amazing.
100% lied about being in Rookie of the Year. And I actually saw on this watch the exact kid I used to lie about being, which is in those opening credits. There's the kid that's sitting in it's not the front row, but they're in the bleachers and he's in front of frame. And he looks a little hot, like he doesn't really want to be there. It's kind of how I look.
Like it's warm out,
exactly.
Not like there's a sexy child in the...
No, there is this 11 out of 10.
Okay.
And I tried to tell kids
so
that's
funny.
me. I'm a hot child. Yeah, no,
It's funny that as a kid you can be like, I am sitting uncomfortably in this like 2-second shot, and like that's gonna give cachet. That's gonna give like status in the school. Like
it's gonna make other 9-year-olds go, "Oh, you're a real actor." Like,
yeah, wow,
yeah,
that's wild. Okay, so you
so I used to lie about being in this movie, but then 2 years later, I got to live this movie a little bit. What happened was a very bizarre circumstance. Was there was a contest to play catch on Wrigley Field, and I didn't win it, but my neighbors did.
Oh, wow.
And their daughters decided they did not want to participate at all, whatsoever. So,
wow.
Yeah. And my neighbor, knowing that I was a huge Cubs fan, because I used to just walk around in a Cubs hat and a mini Mark Grace jersey and mini Ryan Sandberg stuff, they offered the prize to my dad and I.
Wow.
And so we actually played catch on Wrigley Field.
You and your dad played catch on Wrigley Field?
We played catch on Wrigley Field. We trained for months and months. I have athletic acumen. Baseball is not one of the sports where I have much athletic acumen. Like, I can kind of throw the ball, but catching is not my strong suit, and tracking the ball is not my strong suit. I was much more of a soccer, football, karate guy. So my dad basically
all three at the same time.
All three at the same time. I blend things together like dystopian blood sports. That's how I like to
put soccer, football, karate in the Olympics.
You cowards, do it. I'm there. I'm ready to rep my country. So my dad sat me down and he was like, "Scotty, we're going to go do this. But you have to know, people in the bleachers, well, you've seen them. They can get pretty aggressive. And if you drop the ball, they're going to boo you." So
wait, was this like during a game?
This was right before a game.
So, okay. So this is like a thing where pre-game batting practice, all of that sort of stuff, people are filing in.
Exactly.
This is not like a off day thing that's happening.
No, exactly. This is during a game, and we ran out there with about 10 minutes to go. And my dad and I probably shouldn't admit this on mic, but I'm going to. My dad and I did come up with a plan, which is, he said, no matter what, we're getting some of that ivy. I was like, I agree. So the very last one, he threw it back towards the wall, and I ran, and I deliberately missed it so that I could snag a little piece of ivy from the wall.
God, an ivy heist.
We did an ivy heist in the middle of this contest, and it is one of the most epic days I've ever lived in my entire existence. We were playing the Cardinals too, so like it really just like even the baseball was epic. When we finished that game, we went right into the heated rivalry.
Oh my gosh.
So this movie lives large in my memory because as a kid, it represented so many things to me. It was a way I tried to avoid getting bullied, and it was the dream as a Cubs fan. Not only the dream of being a baseball player, but the dream that the Cubs win a World Series.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I felt like I got a window into what this movie would actually be like, and so it's always been a deeply sentimental favorite because I actually got to cross over with it a little bit. And watching that today, I was thinking about it before the watch. I was telling my partner, I think I'm really going to love this rewatch because I think this movie was weirdly formative for me. And then rewatching it today, not only did I say yes to that, but it sort of yes-anded. I think some of what this movie goes for tonally has actually stuck around with me as an artist in ways that I was very surprised by.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is great. What a great way to launch into our scoring here.
Yeah.
So we are going to be rating this film, and by we, I mean Scott is, because the scores are a matter of historical record as far as mine and Ellen's are concerned. But these will be on the 20 to 80 scouting scale used for baseball prospects. Ellen is way better at this than I am describing the scouting scale because she is a firm believer in particular ways of doing it. And I am sometimes a little rascal about it.
Yeah.
Although I've been better in recent months. So on this scale, 50 is a productive major leaguer. This is someone who contributes. It is like not average in a bad sense. It is like you are a contributing member of your team. We tend to do analogies. That just became a big thing that blows up. And so why not talk about baseball card breaks? So a 50 baseball card break is what? You get a number of cards, like both quantity and quality. Maybe the quality is not like super high, but you're satisfied.
Yeah.
Right?
You got your money's worth in cards. Like, let's say the base value of a card is $1. You got 35 cards. Maybe you got a nice refractor, a low numbered parallel, but I would say that's like a 50, right?
There you go.
And then I guess a 70 or 80 would be like you draw a rookie auto.
Yeah. Well, okay. So first, let's just say that as we go down, 45, 40, 30, 20, you're getting worse and worse. You aren't getting interesting cards. You're maybe not getting very many cards. My very first break is maybe a 20.
Really?
Maybe a 20, maybe a 30, maybe a 30. This was a break that I spent a lot of money on. I don't mean to guilt Scott.
Oh no.
Because it was a little bit, you tipped me off to this one.
100% I did. And I take full responsibility.
And I spent like $50 on a Mets break, like an $8 Topps Finest thing. And I think I got like 10 base cards and 1 refractor out of it or something. And I was like, oh man, I'm such a bad gambling person. This is not where I should be with my choices. But that's okay. That's okay. Have you had a similar type? I feel like I saw one recently where you had a couple of teams and you got like nothing.
Yeah. That one was specifically, there's a great company called Filth Bomb Breaks. Shouts to Filth Bomb Breaks. Really fun stuff. I wanted to go in on the Twins because Alex Kirilloff, thought great chase. The price was $40, which was lower than most places it's priced or what had been going for eBay. I was like, I'm willing to take the value play on that.
Yeah.
And then they had a filler for this where top 6 people out of 20 it could have been the Yankees, it could have been the Marlins, it could have been the Rays, it could have been the Royals. And I thought, screw it. I have a feeling if I enter this thing, I'm going to win a team.
Yeah.
And I did. I won the Rays.
Yeah.
So I'm
good team.
Great team. So I'm like, oh my God, I could get a Luis Patino autograph. I'm going to get my Kirilloff. It's going to happen. No numbered parallels, maybe 5 cards tops. And I went from feeling like I was on top of the world to being like, holy shit. That's a 20.
I will say this was definitely a thing that I hate to say it made me feel slightly better when I watched it. Just
It
'cause I was like,
should.
oh, it's not just me.
No. And one of the things I love about breaks is not only the randomness of what you get back, but that you'll see other people luck into these incredible draws. And if you're watching a certain break, you're like, I think I just saw someone's life change.
That's amazing.
Potentially. And I remember watching one where I think the person was in a random filler and they caught the Cardinals and they got 2 Dylan Carlson autos and an Ozzie Smith, and they weren't even there for that team. And I'm like, you probably just made rent for 3 months if you play this right.
That's amazing.
Or you have, if he turns out to be the guy, like 10 years from now, you're paying off part of your mortgage. Like, holy shit.
That's so cool. So, yes, when we go in the other direction, 55, 60, 70, 80, it gets better. It's not Rocket Stedman science. It is... Thanks. That's going to be my best joke of the podcast. So get ready for a decline. No, then that's when you're starting to get the numbered cards. That's when you're pulling a lot of refractors. We both had pretty good breaks pretty recently related to a Mr. Juan Soto.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, because I paid like $5 for a break and got a super short print Series 1 card that is super cool and that I'm not going to flip because I'm going to hold on to it and I'm going to put it in my will, basically.
Yeah.
And you similarly had like the coolest card pull that I've seen.
Which I'm now convinced we're going to be good luck for one another, because this is the first time I've ever broken a box and let someone know I was doing it. And I basically was texting Eric the results, and on the last card got a Juan Soto autograph out of 30 that will also be going in my will, like to pay for someone's education.
This is one of the like Series 2 silver pack 1986 throwback Juan Soto autographed cards numbered to 30, right?
Yeah.
Amazing.
And when the baseball collectors that I follow on Instagram were messaging me about it, when I put up in my story, I went, oh, okay. This is something.
Everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay. I don't have to be reactionary. It's all going to be fine.
We just really quickly, before we jump in, I'm just going to point out that Ellen and I went to our first baseball game at Target Field not that long ago on this trip.
Nice.
And she very proudly bought a Kirilov shirt.
Yes, that's awesome.
So, yeah, it was good. It was good. They fell apart in the 7th to the Royals, but it was a good game. And I also started getting the shakes in the last couple of innings because little did I know I was coming down with strep throat.
Well, that seems completely commiserate with the Royals' experience of that game.
I was having a great time, got up in the 7th to get a drink before the 7th inning stretch, and was like, why am I shaking uncontrollably?
And what does it say about 2021 that you're shaking uncontrollably at a baseball game, and that's such a better case scenario than anything that could have happened in 2020?
It's totally true.
It's, God, what a time we're living in. I told someone the other day that the energy I want for the rest of my year are 2 things that I've heard happen recently. One, a man being eaten by a whale in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and being spit back out by the whale. Just surviving.
Yeah, Jonah style.
And 2, Rebecca Black's new album not only not sucking, but being great. Like, Rebecca Black has turned into a legitimate pop star, and I'm sitting here going, that's my 2021 energy. I want to give me the confidence of a meme that we used to laugh at, becoming a fully fledged pop star.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yes. And so with that, let's dive into your thoughts on these categories. And,
Excellent.
we'll see what happens. We'll see how this goes.
Great.
So for amount of baseball,
Yeah.
how do you feel about this?
I feel that this movie is pitched somewhere between a 65 to a 70 in terms of amount of baseball.
Nice. Okay. I like that. Going out strong.
Yeah. It's, when you think about it, there's very few diversions from the baseball experience here. We get really in-depth looks for a movie at the fan base. We catch it from the stadium itself to the way the suburbs react, which I'm very partial to. I think I did a deep dive on the geography of this movie, and I am 95% sure these kids live where I grew up.
Oh, that's fantastic.
They ride the Purple Line in, and the only place that the Purple Line is accessible from is the north side of Chicago. Plus, they're taking their boat out, which means they're basically got to be close to Lake Michigan and not necessarily on a beach. You can do both where I grew up. So I love that it gets that North Suburban experience. Everybody focusing in on the game, right? You have Amy Morton listening to the game in the middle of her flower shop activities. You have
that shot where she hits the planter, like hanging above her, is a masterpiece.
I could go off about how I'm furious after this rewatch that this movie didn't make Amy Morton a movie star.
Right?
Honestly.
Yeah.
This is the most, I think, the world of Amy Morton.
Yeah.
But this is the most charming, open, and movie starish she's ever been.
Absolutely. And we will talk about that more.
Fantastic.
In acting. But I just want to point out real quick that I think that you and I have a very similar take on the amount of baseball category. Ellen is very much a person who sees this pretty exclusively as a ratio stat. She's a little more, I would say, a little more draconian about it than I am. She wants to see a glove. She wants to see a ball.
Yes.
And like, how much baseball is there literally? Like, what percentage of it? And I tend to be, I think that's a great way of going about it, but I let my emotions get involved.
Yeah.
I get overly influenced by like, well, we're not watching a game, but we're seeing the team in a place, and so we're seeing the dynamic. We're seeing the scene that's happening in the clubhouse. We're seeing the scene in the dugout. It seems like you are similarly like, when you think about how much baseball is in a movie, those factor into the score a little bit for you.
100%. And I was stunned on this rewatch that there's so much front office stuff in a film that's intended for children. Like, we are covering multiple facets of this baseball experience. And to me, even his brief journey into being an advertising sensation counts as baseball stuff because he's ostensibly a mainstream baseball phenom. He would be closer to a Tatis Jr. than he is not, like someone who crosses over into being a mainstream sensation. And to me, that's part of the baseball experience. The stuff that isn't is really the stuff at school and the stuff with his friends, which I can't justify as being baseball in any way, shape, or form. But most everything else I feel I can put in that category.
I like that. So just for the record, Ellen scored this a 55 and I scored it a 60. So we are like, this feels correct.
Excellent.
In the way that we're talking about it. So moving on to the next category, how do you feel about baseball accuracy?
Oh boy. Okay. So this is my score for baseball accuracy is going to say a lot about how I feel about this movie at large. I was going to give it a 40. I'm going to bump it to a 45.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Here's my feeling.
Yeah.
This film is super baseball accurate when it comes to the spirit of the sport. If you're
Interesting. Okay.
If you're judging the feeling of what baseball can be, I think there's something about this movie that captures a certain scrappiness, a certain love for the game, a certain passion for the baseball experience that feels very accurate to me and feels very north side of Chicago accurate to me.
Okay.
That, I think, is super on the nose emotionally. When we're getting into actual Major League Baseball details, it couldn't be farther from accurate. It's completely off its rocker. And so I can't actually give it the 50, right? I can't say this is contributing to the canon of baseball accuracy.
Sure.
I do think it's as good a movie about the north side of Chicago baseball experience as has been made. And granted, there aren't many, but I think it's fairly on the nose in that. What's wild to me about this movie is that it captures the experience of being like a bleacher Chicago Cubs fan without any visible beer at any point. And that's a tremendous accomplishment for a PG family film.
That's a magic trick. Yeah, for sure.
I give it those accuracy points. But as you and I were emailing about, why the Mets at this moment?
It's very strange. That was definitely one of the things that we talked about.
Yeah.
Our first visit through it. It doesn't totally make sense for any number of reasons.
Yeah.
How do you feel the Cubs team represented in this film like matches the Cubs from that era?
Not well enough.
Okay.
I like that we have Neil Flynn at first base
Uh-huh.
because that ostensibly winds up being a Mark Grace stand-in.
Sure.
Great. No notes. He's not like Mark Grace in any way, shape, or form.
I love that you had a Mark Grace jersey.
I adore Mark Grace. He's one of my all-time favorite athletes, period, not
Hell,
just baseball.
yeah. Second place in Rookie of the Year voting in 1988.
Yes.
4-time Golden Glove winner. 119 OPS plus across a 15-year career.
Look at you with those Mark Grace stats. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, nothing bad about that at all.
No, and we did have a decently diverse squad, so I'm glad that a diverse team is represented here. Mm-hmm. But to that end, there's no charismatic outfielder, so no Andre Dawson.
Yeah.
We do not have an interesting person at second, and as a Ryan Sandberg devotee, I take major umbrage.
Yeah.
And we'll get to it later, but there's no interesting catcher. There's really nothing happening there whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to it.
That is, oh boy. So I feel that it captures some of the spirit of those early 90s teams. But again, in terms of being a detailed representation of who the Cubs are, not exactly. And there's another place where this will come into sharper focus later down in the scoring that I won't spoil. But those early 90s Cubs are really formative for me, not just as a team and a gathering of interesting individuals, but as sort of a gateway into how fandom can represent itself, both from the team level, from the broadcast level, from everything. And this, again, for a family-friendly 20th Century Fox film, gets a lot of it right.
That's
but
awesome.
It doesn't go far enough if I'm living my wildest fantasy of what it looks like.
Sure. Another thing that I think is interesting about this film with regards to accuracy is that so much of it is focused on the pitching.
Yes.
Which, like, at least as far as my review of the Cubs of this era is concerned, like, there were a lot of really good position players at the time, but, like, they were kind of hurting for pitching. Like,
if anything, we let our good pitching go more often than not. I mean, we had Maddox for a nice period of time, but then he really makes his mark, right, on the Braves.
Yeah. And although there were some awesome bullpen arms that year, like Randy Myers had 53 saves, Jose Bautista had an ERA plus of 140 in
Lord.
111.2 innings, the starting rotation was not good.
A nightmare.
With each of Mike Morgan, Jose Guzman, Greg Hibbard, Mike Harkey, and Frank Castillo, every single one of them was below replacement level.
Yeah. And it was, I think, a 5-year, 6-year journey from that point. When does Kerry Wood come onto the team? I can't remember what year Kerry
I don't
Wood comes
remember,
on.
yeah.
In my mind, it's the late 90s, but I think that's a little too early. But really, like, we get on a 7 to 10-year journey getting to Kerry Wood, and that's really the moment when Cubs pitching is a thing again. But until then, not at all.
Yeah.
Which is why we lost our mind for him and Pryor as a combination unit.
It's funny that you mention Greg Maddux because, like, another interesting thing is that, like, around the time of this movie, 1993, we also see what could be seen as the beginning of the ascent of a Mr. Sammy Sosa.
Yes.
Who was a couple of years away yet from the, like, insane heights that he would eventually reach. But in 1993, he had 33 home runs and 36 stolen bases.
Yeah.
Like, he was a good player already.
He was very good. And two other things to interestingly note if we're talking about the history. It's wild to me that there's absolutely no mention of the White Sox in this movie. Because if we're talking 90s appropriate baseball,
Yeah.
you got Frank Thomas and Ozzie Guillen on the opposite side of the city, just owning the hearts and minds of really pretty much everyone except Cubs diehards. Like, I think of myself as a Cubs diehard, but because I was a kid, I grew up loving all Chicago teams.
Sure.
And best believe I had Big Hurt stuff. I loved Ozzy. I thought he was an incredible player.
Ellen was very into a number of White Sox people as a kid.
It makes my day.
Big Hurt
Oh.
in particular, because like, how could you not?
It's few things disappoint me more than Frank Thomas earning his bank in 2020 and 2021 by propping up Nugenics. Like, it's somehow his baseball career has turned into the equivalent of Bruce Willis's acting resume. It's just 5 minutes in and out, no
Amazing.
regard for quality control. It's not great. It's not a great look.
So for this category, Ellen rated it a 30. Very, I mean, this is
get
again
that.
like seeing it as an adult and like some deep dives. It's a lot of fun. If someone is just now sort of getting acclimated to the podcast, our Rookie of the Year episode has a lot of fun stuff that we will not rehash here, but Ellen goes wild with the baseball accuracy, and it is worth a listen.
I understand that. That makes perfect sense to me.
So, actually, you know what? Now that we've talked about this, why don't I just go ahead and say that I have a couple of gifts for you. I'm going to try to
What?
time them out appropriately.
What?
It's not the year that we are talking about, but let me go ahead and give you from my personal childhood collection.
Oh my God.
First of all, we have a 1989 Andre Dawson
What?
MVP card from
What?
Don Russ.
What?
That's for you.
I'm losing my mind right now. What?
And we also have a 1989 Bowman Greg Maddux for you.
This is one of the best days of my life. Oh my God.
Oh,
This is-
yeah.
I have sleeves and top loaders on me. I guess this is why I brought them. Oh my
There you
God.
go. There you go. So, not to lose momentum, you enjoy those. Let us move along to storytelling. How do you feel about the storytelling in this movie?
Way better than I thought I was going to.
Okay, cool.
So here's my in-process hot take about this film. I remember this movie as being a pretty fun childhood romp that doubles as a decent sports movie.
Uh-huh.
Watching it today, I thought this movie is pretty thematically on point as a film that is about the dangers of growing up too fast.
Oh, I like that take.
And I may be getting ahead of us, but I feel compelled to bring it up. One of the great questions, right? Would this movie be better with Kevin Costner in it?
Sure.
My answer is no, but that's because Kevin Costner is ostensibly the dad that left in this movie.
Oh.
Yeah, there is no Kevin Costner in this movie. This movie is populated by either hard scrabble adults who are doing their best to kind of stay young and stay alive, or they are deeply scheming.
Yeah.
And into this enters a kid who has maybe the purest perspective on baseball that you can possibly have. He does not let a complete lack of skill keep him from wanting to be in the game
It's true.
and celebrating the trash talking, the old timey, like if this kid could be chewing tobacco while he played, he would be. He would be finding a way.
Oh, yeah.
In the Bad News Bears-ish version of this movie, to
Sure.
be chewing tobacco, he would cozy up to Walter Matthau. He would be completely unflappable. His pure idealism of baseball runs into the reality of being a baseball player, which is both completely romanticized and also not at all. You have
Yeah.
a scheming front office. You have this aging star who pretty much sits him down and goes, "Don't get too attached to this because it will disappoint you."
That's the whole, that is a thing that I feel like as I get older, when I watch the movie, that is something that hits me more and more, is like how the parallels between Rocket Stedman and Henry Rowan Gardner, this sort of sense of like, you've got it until you don't got it.
Yeah. And that what he elects to do at the end of the movie is stay a kid longer.
Yeah.
He gets this really clear glimpse of what the adult world is, both through Rocket, baseball, and the evil stepfather.
Yeah.
Who I'd completely forgotten about. And watching those scenes, I went, that is drawn up far more brutally than I remember. As cartoonish as it is, it's also kind of not
Yeah, it's
at all.
again, it's like a kids movie. So it being kind of a kids movie, there are people who basically identify as villains.
Yes.
They're like, "Hi, I'm a bad guy."
Yeah, and who within the emotional logic of this movie, like, prey on a woman who it turns out is incredible, but who exploits her insecurities. And basically says, oh, you are left? Here I swoop in on the third date giving you this massive necklace.
Yeah.
Like,
It's so weird, so goofy.
It's so goofy and manipulative and weird. And so, like, the emotional consistency of this movie, I think, is actually tremendously sound. And I was moved by the tonal discrepancy as opposed to thinking it's a bug. Like, Daniel Stern kind of gets to have his cake and eat it too. When he wants to go pretty hard in the paint, he does.
Yeah.
The Gary Busey performance, the stuff with Rocket, it's real, it's adult. And then he also makes room for these childlike adults
Totally.
who give Henry an idea that, like, maybe you could grow into someone that still has this weird passion for the game that's ostensibly a misfit in adult clothes.
So let me ask you, just to pivot away
Please.
for a moment, with MLB vigorously cracking down on foreign substances on the ball,
Yeah.
even the fairly common and non-nefarious sunscreen and rosin combination, do you think that we should reconsider the moments when Henry's mom tosses him sunscreen?
100%, I do. Well, we should consider his mom's whole influence on this movie a lot more than we do. Mostly people remember this movie as like Rocket and Henry, and we don't remember this as like the secret reveal that Amy Morton was a pitching ace. Like,
I also feel like a storytelling moment. It sort of feels like at the very last moment, the like tape comes off of his glove and her name appears, but there's a shot of her like giving a knowing look right beforehand that kind of to me reads like she is like psychically commanding him to like,
Yes.
like, now is the time for you to learn this info.
yes, and I would give this film a higher rating on storytelling if that landed either more as magical realism or was set up better as naturalism. Like, and it sucks that that's the thing I'm docking it for, because I'd forgotten that this movie had a pretty incredible female character at its center.
Oh yeah.
Like, she's amazing. The
So-
mom is amazing.
I have two quick questions
Please.
for you. Did you ever build a rickety boat with your friends to impress a girl for whom milk did that body good?
I'm so sorry to say that while I definitely probably at some point in my childhood said milk did a female I was admiring's body good, I didn't build a boat. I elected instead, and this is probably why I never dated anyone until high school, to stage a wrestling match in the hopes that I would be seen defeating someone in WWE style combat.
Very as you like it.
Very as you like it. Like,
Yeah.
in retrospect, of course I'm doing Shakespeare.
Amazing.
But I never built a boat because I was not from the part of Illinois where you could build boats. That was a few suburbs down. We only had access to the beach.
Fair enough. Fair
not the
enough.
boats.
So Henry, at one point, moving on to my second question, gets fined $500 for being late. And Henry says, that's like 6 years allowance, which, as we mentioned in our first episode, amounts to like $1.60 a week. So my question for you, Scott, is do you remember what your allowance was in 1993?
$5.
$5. That's what we said too.
Yeah,
There you go.
$5. And I did use it to buy baseball packs. I really did.
Amazing.
I absolutely spent it on baseball cards. So I would not have been able to pay this $500 because I would have too many Cal Ripken Jr. cards lying around my bedroom.
Incredible. So remind me of your score on this.
I'm going to be overtly generous and give it a 65. I think
65. Wow.
I'm going to give it a high score because I think that it goes above and beyond for a kids movie.
That's fair.
But as a true act of baseball film storytelling, it drops the ball in its third act more than it should. And I want to give it a 70, but I can't. I can't actually justify
Incredible.
it because the mom stuff doesn't pick a lane. And if it picked a lane, I would be able to give it a 70. I can't do that. Can't make it.
I'm in awe of and entirely applaud your generosity. We both gave this a 45.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But I think that that's also like scoring with adult eyes, and I celebrate you scoring it in part with the eyes that you watched it with in 1993.
Which I am sometimes able to separate. On this film, I am clearly not able to separate at all.
Amazing.
At all.
So next is the score tool.
Yeah.
Score tool!
And you thought Stedman was going to be your best joke. I mean, really, you've had several bangers since then.
Well,
and
you know,
that's one of them.
As you know, you start a podcast and bits just arrive out of nowhere.
They're
and
so important.
And then you embrace them, and then they become a thing that you have to do.
Correct.
So anyway, how do you feel about Bill Conti's score in this film? And also just like the music generally as used here.
I'm going to go ahead and give this a 55.
Great.
The reason being,
Ellen was a 60 and I was a 50, so you were like right there with us here.
I was very tempted to give it a 60. I went down to 55 because as far as Bill Conti scores go, the man is sleepwalking. And
Yeah.
I say that with all the love in the world. I think Bill Conti is incredible, and I think there are moments in this score where he absolutely elevates the sports movie of it all, because I think it's a decent sports movie, but it's drawing so hard from sports movies that have come before. Like, pretty much every baseball sequence in this film is rooted in the natural. And it doesn't...
Oh.
Right? Like, a lot of, like, slow tracking shots that aren't quite slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really leaning into the score to create extra drama. Like, you kind of feel like Bill Conti is going, like, I'm going to do my Randy Newman here.
Nice. I like that take. We have yet to review The Natural for the podcast.
Yeah.
But that's something I'm going to take with me for when we eventually do it.
I rewatched it recently, and I think there's a lot of parallels here that Daniel Stern is drawing from. And I think deliberately. I mean, this is Daniel's first film. You can see moments where he's giving himself kind of a handicap as a director.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of them. But as a score in a kid's movie, I feel compelled to give it above a 50 because, again, you're getting a genuine Bill Conti score.
Totally.
And when he decides to goofball it up, I have this moment where I say frequently on one of my podcasts, is something a feature or a bug? And in the instance of this score, it's both. That scene where Stedman is running to tag the player and the electric guitar is going nuts.
Mm-hmm.
One part of my brain goes, oh, Jesus, what? Why are we doing this? It's so goofball. And the other part of my brain is going, oh, hell yeah. Like,
Yeah. There's a part of me that loves how that comes in just like because that guitar shreds right when the arm shreds.
yes, exactly. It's so on the nose. And I feel like it's both great and terrible in the same measure. And for a kid's movie, I feel like, to quote Celebrity Deathmatch, I'll allow it. Like, it works. It totally works. My adult brain can't handle it, but the kid in me probably adored that moment, and Bill Conti knew what he was writing a score for. He wasn't trying to do J.J. Abrams and Super 8 Transcendence. He was leaning into the 20th Century Fox family film of it all, and I think
Absolutely.
he understood the assignment.
Yeah.
And
Ellen, this was one category, it might be the only category where she gave it a higher score than me. I hedged a little bit. I wasn't sure if I felt like the contrast between the music and the scenes depicted was like ultimately a useful thing or not. I think that was a feature more for Ellen than a bug. There's lots of strings and horns. The horns, of course, are not surprising because Bill Conti, may be most famous for the horns in the Rocky theme.
my entire foray into rap depends on Bill Conti's horns.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Victory by P. Diddy and the Family, or I think at that point Puff Daddy and the Family, samples the Rocky soundtrack for a track with Notorious B.I.G. and Busta Rhymes.
You know that I'm 2 levels above you, baby. Hug me, baby. I'ma make you love me, baby. Talking crazy ain't gonna get you nothing but choke. And that jealousy is only gonna leave you broke.
I love that. I love that so much. There's something about the strings too, especially the kind of main theme that plays over the titles that we get a couple of times.
Yes.
That feels very Americana. It feels very like Aaron Copland, like hoedown music to me.
Yes.
That I don't know if it like fully introduces the movie that we're going to see.
No.
But I do think that it is good music.
Well, and Major League, which is another movie that lives pretty fully in my heart, takes the opposite approach, right? When both movies open similarly, we catch the ballpark, we catch the fan base, we go, here is the team you're going to be following and why you're going to follow them. And it really leans in musically to the idea that the Indians are just crap.
Oh my God.
They are the worst.
The kind of melancholy Randy Newman at the beginning
Yes.
of Major League is one of my favorite things. We recently did Major League 2, and the music is fine, but it's mostly Stevie Ray Vaughan, I think.
Yes.
And it's like, it's night and day as far as I'm concerned.
And it's, I love forever that Major League, the original, is rated R, and Major League 2 is PG. Am I remembering that correctly? It's a PG film?
I'm not
Or
sure. That
PG-13?
sounds totally possible.
And the idea that you would have to go from Stevie Ray Vaughan, or from Randy Newman to Stevie Ray Vaughan to actually make your rating more family friendly feels entirely appropriate in a lot of ways. But I enjoy that Bill Conti went the opposite route. He said, you know, the Chicago Cubs basically represent the perennial idea of hope in this score. And I'm going to lean into the idea that they are an Americana element more than they are a sad, downtrodden element. And
Yeah.
I think as a lifelong Cubs fan, there's some truth to that, only because not just growing up with them, but coming to New York at a young age and meeting so many Cubs fans in the city, realizing that they had an American and world presence beyond their Chicago lineage. I thought there's something about that feels right. I don't think Bill Conti exactly accomplishes what he's going for, but I applaud the decision. And so I give it a 55.
Amazing. I think that's a good score. Moving on to acting. We've talked about this a little bit already, but tell me a little bit more about sort of what your opinion is generally about the acting in this film.
I don't think anyone does a bad job in this film. I think everybody is up to a certain floor, right? I think the acting floor is very high in this movie. Whether it is Amy Morton having a genuine movie star turn, or Daniel Stern deciding he's going to do full 11 out of 10 clown act.
He is going for
He's
it
going
in
for it.
this movie. Yeah.
And when you remember he directed his own performance, you realize none of that is a mistake.
What's wild, too, is that he is capable of really delicate, nuanced work. I mean,
Yes.
we did an episode on this made-for-TV film called The Court Martial of Jackie Robinson.
Oh, sure, I've seen
Where,
it. Yeah.
and he's incredible in
Yes.
it. Or, like, going all the way back to, like, Diner. He's
Yes.
so good
He's
in
an
it.
incredible talent.
But also an incredible physical comedian, and like does really, really good slapstick on camera, which is hard. I am not good at it.
No. And I feel like he kind of uses his performance in this film to leverage some of the more naturalistic stuff that occurs, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think he realized that him being a clown post the 2 Home Alone movies was a selling point for the studio, and he leaned in.
Sure.
Because
sure.
we get, and I'm going to give this a 60, spoiler, because again, I don't think anything is truly transcendent, but this is my favorite Gary Busey performance by a mile.
He's wonderful.
amazing.
Yeah.
I forget that he'd sustained his brain injury already at this point.
Yeah. I thought that he hadn't just
No.
because he's so.
Grounded.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And beautiful. And I think if you're putting a Gary Busey performance in the time capsule, you're probably putting 2 in. It's Lethal Weapon and it's this. And it's this heartbreaking reminder that, like, Gary Busey probably could have been an all-timer. And I think he shows it in this film. It's an unbelievable performance.
I agree. And I love that you say movie star turn for Amy Morton, because I completely agree. She is so incredible. Like, she's so magnetic
Yes.
in this film, in this role that is far from a thankless role, but it doesn't have star role like written all over it.
No.
Like, she brings so much to it. She makes it so much more than what it is.
And you get the feeling that, like, she and Thomas Ian Nicholas, who I actually think is also incredible in
He's
this
great.
movie, he's really, like, he doesn't hit quite the levels of like transcendent child star that weird comparison Jodie Foster does in Taxi Driver. or like, you know, like we're not talking about that kind of turn where you're like, oh, this person's going to define the rest of their life through acting. But you do walk away going, you were probably one of the most charismatic children of your generation.
Oh, yeah.
When you stepped up. This is the moment to say this. The other reason this movie ages well for me is Henry has major Anthony Rizzo energy. And this is a transcendent Cubs movie in the fact that Anthony Rizzo has become one of our iconic Cubs athletes. And
Tiny pal.
Henry grows into Anthony Rizzo. Like, that is 1,000% the thing that happens if Henry keeps pursuing baseball.
Love that take
so
much.
I wish Anthony Rizzo would steal a base talking about the size of a pitcher's ass. Like, try it, Anthony, please. I'm
Incredible.
begging you.
So
Begging you.
Ellen gave this a 55, and I gave it a 60. So again, like we're pretty close on
We're
that.
in line. Yeah.
All right, just a few categories left.
Yep.
We have delightfulness of catcher next.
20.
Yeah,
Non-existent.
there's not much there. Ellen
Stay in AAA.
gave this a 30. I gave it a 40, but I think that was one of those like weird, like I'm gonna go ahead and be generous type things. But I think probably 20 or 30 is the way to go.
I'm mad that W. Earl Brown plays one of the catchers in this movie and has nothing to do. He's a tremendous actor, and
He's
he
a
does
treasure.
nothing.
Yeah.
20.
All right, so delightfulness of announcer. How do you feel about that?
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 70.
Wow. Okay, this is good because I gave it a 60, but Ellen gave it a 30.
What?
Well, in her opinion, this is not an announcer that she would enjoy listening to a broadcast of.
I respect that.
And also, I believe her other main objection to it was kind of the trope of the announcer who kind of rags on their own team.
Yeah.
And I think the combo of those two really rubbed her the wrong way. And
I
to
understand
be
that.
fair, there was in my 60 score probably some inflation just sheerly out of the fact that I'm a big John Candy fan.
Same. To be transparent, same. I also am grading it on the scale of, okay, you need a Harry Carey substitute that can carry a family film.
That can Harry carry a family film.
Yeah, and you somehow created an announcer who seems drunk without ever being drunk, who is an absolute mess, who loves this team, but is sentimental in the rawest of ways. And he captures that the whole time. And I think the key to it for me is how nervous he gets when there's actually a championship broadcast on the line. I feel if Harry Carey had ever been sober, that would be his experience of that moment too. And knowing Candy's relationship to Chicago, I see that channeled in his performance. I would give it an 80 if there were a genuine Steve Stone stand-in, which there isn't. The guy who's weirdly optimistic doesn't count. Harry and Steve were everything. And we get like a nice family-friendly Harry Carey parallel, but we don't really get our Steve Stone. And to me, he was always an essential part of the broadcast. Like when he went to the White Sox, Cubs fans mourned for months that he had left the broadcast booth. And there's no substitute for that. That's the only reason I'm docking at points, because I think this was as close as you were going to get to the Cubs broadcast experience in a PG movie.
Amazing. For that wonderful take, I'm going to give you 2 more baseball cards.
What?
They're both Upper Deck.
Amazing.
One of them is a Goose Gossage for
Goose!
the 1 year that he played for the Cubs.
I've never forgotten Goose Gossage as long as I live.
And we also have a 1990 Upper Deck Sean Dunston.
This really is the best day of my life. Here was the thing I appreciate about Rookie of the Year. I appreciated that there was a great play with a shortstop.
Yeah.
Right? The simultaneous base running. He's the shortstop. And obviously it's not Sean Dunston, but That is the kind of thing that Sean Dunstan would have tried to pull. That man stole so many bases.
Dunstan-esque.
Dunstan-esque.
Dunstan checks in to
Listen.
the base that he steals.
Thora Birch forever. 90s movies involving monkeys as a major plot device forever. We got Monkey Business. We got Dunstan Checks In. We got Congo.
Oh, we certainly have Ed.
Ed.
Oh man, I can't wait to revisit Ed with somebody. some poor soul. Okay, moving on to our final category, which
Yes.
is lack of misogyny, so named so that the higher score is less misogynistic and the lower score is more misogynistic. How do you
Yeah.
feel about this?
I've been really torn, and I guess I'm going to talk it out very briefly. So I think the movie has very purposeful misogyny, right? Like misogyny that is enacted by its characters, both in the form of the evil stepfather, and then the boys kind of doing the base Pokemon version of locker room talk, only to completely wind up looking like asses that the girls find charming because they're not capable of being full-on misogynies. That said, George does say she's stacked and do some like very third grade objectifying.
One of my favorite lines in the movie, though, is "Look at her drinking that milk,"
You're drinking it, it's done that body good.
or maybe sipping that milk. Look
Sipping
at her
that
sipping
milk,
that
it's
milk.
done that body good. But then this has got to be one of the fullest portraits of a mother that's
Yeah.
existed in a 90s family film and maybe a 90s film.
Amy Morton is a strong single mother
Yes.
hero champ. Yeah.
Yes, and we don't objectively get her and Gary Busey together at the end. You can read into it that way because he's coaching.
That's
the
a really good
team,
point, yeah.
but we don't force her to hook up with
Henry sure tries to.
Henry
but
tries with his
unclear
club
what
soda
the-
drinks.
Yeah. Club soda and Frank Sinatra, babe.
he goes for it. He tries to pull his Happy Gilmore moment, and he doesn't quite pull it off. But to me, I'm gonna hedge my bet a little bit and give it a 65.
That is the exact score that I gave.
Amazing.
Ellen went 70.
I get that too. I
Yeah.
wanted to. I will come back to if we made a stronger stylistic choice with how that last moment reveals itself, right? Whether she knows about the glove or whether it kind of hits this magical realism moment, I think I would have bumped it up to a 70 because she winds up being a plot twist to a
Yeah.
degree more than an extension of her character. And it's a
Yeah.
lovely, well-meant extension of her character.
Yeah.
But the way it unfolds, to me, it's just not well set up enough. And in a way, that's misogyny. It isn't, but, Stedman really gets to see his story laid out beat by beat in a way where it's kind of like, no holes.
Yeah.
There's no misses here. And because there's that little miss with her, I credit that as being just like a little bit misogynistic, even if it's well meant. So that's what takes it down to a 65 from a 70 for me.
Totally love that. Totally love that. Okay, as we wrap up here, let me just ask you a few of our yes or no questions.
Yes.
Some of them are pretty objective, and so I won't ask you them, but I will ask
Great.
you some. You have already chimed in on would this movie be better with Kevin Costner in it?
Yes.
And you gave a no on
No,
that.
he's the big chill in this movie. He is influential, but outside of the frame.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite moment in this film?
Yes. Yes, I do. It is Stedman running to tag the player out. I have remembered that ever since I was a little child.
That's so sweet. I love that.
I love it so much. I think of it as like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a microcosmic moment of the struggle of athletes and like the reward of going in. Like I just watched the NBA playoffs and watched Joel Embiid play through a meniscus tear.
Oh my gosh.
And I think of Stedman when I see him just wincing after every play. It's a really great representation of that struggle that often gets dismissed by fandom.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I love that.
Totally. You know, it's funny. My favorite moment was the Funky Butt Levin moment because I'm just like a total troglodyte.
It's great.
And it's funny because this is now my second podcast about this movie.
Yes.
And I have mentioned this twice, but I haven't really talked about the scene either time.
It's a great scene.
But I feel like it kind of like stands on its own. Like it doesn't necessarily need a whole lot of like analysis. It's just like a delightful little moment.
Yes. And it was the thing that if you were a kid and saw this movie, you probably at some point quoted with your friends.
Yeah.
Did he say funky butt lovin'? No,
Funky
it's
butt lovin'.
Great stuff.
Do you have a least favorite moment?
Yes. I would say my least favorite moment in this movie is the fight over the boat.
Okay. Yeah.
It's this movie briefly becomes A Star Is Born, and
Wow.
right? It kind of does.
Yeah.
Like he's in a toxic relationship with his friends that is getting compromised by the toxicity of becoming this athlete who has endorsements. And for like 10 minutes, we go high drama in this movie. I don't feel it's well set up enough. The stuff
Yeah,
actually
it's not totally earned.
No.
Yeah.
And it sucks because a movie that earned that moment would be better. I don't dismiss the choice. It's a good choice. It's just not well earned enough.
Is there a scene that you would like to see?
I would like to see them at one of his games and feeling the shame or the insecurity of having a friend who's excelling higher than you are, because it's already baked into the film.
Oh, yeah.
They are actually, against cliche, encouraging him to talk to girls. They want him to succeed in this front.
Yeah.
And in fact, George does succeed, right? In a scene that I think is quite lovely,
Yeah.
where like his kind of like Neanderthal charms win over Tiffany. It's a
Where he's talking about the dude with the pencil in
the
his
dude with the
nose.
pencil in his
Yeah.
nose. I mean, it's kind of a great moment. But
And Clark is like a secret sex machine.
yes.
Like, there's that moment. I feel like that was a joke that Daniel Stern wanted to put in, and maybe there were even additional scenes where
Yes.
they did it that just got cut from the final cut. But, like, there's that moment where Amy Martin's like, "Hi, George." "Hi, Clark."
Yes.
And then one little kid, one of the first cafeteria scenes, like,
Yes.
there's a girl, Edith, I think her name is.
Yeah.
Similarly is like, "Hi, Clark."
Yes.
And I think that there might have been a gag of like, let's make the runty kid of this group weirdly attractive in a way that like people don't even understand.
It's
to
very
people.
post Goonies, post Stand By Me, and he leans in, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
great. It just doesn't get enough screen time, and if we had that moment, I think it would fit into the idea of like this movie is a little bit about growing up too fast, and he's growing up faster than his friends are, and that's what throws them, not how good he is, but the fact that he's kind of getting elevated into an adult sphere that they don't get to participate in, which is why the heartbreak of the boat versus the commercial is such a thing.
Nice.
It's not about his success. It's about the adult of it all.
Do you have a favorite performance?
Gary Busey.
Gary Busey. Yeah.
It's him and Amy Morton neck and neck. But for sentimental reasons, it's Gary Busey because I know that Amy Morton went on to give incredible performances and be lauded for the kind of actress that she is.
Yeah.
Gary Busey's breaks my heart the way Junior Seau's life as an athlete breaks my heart. 'Cause I'm like,
yeah.
You never got to this place again. You kind of became a meme after this performance, and you were a genuinely great actor.
Yeah. I think I went Busey and Ellen went Morton in that. So
Great
yeah,
choice.
and
I
it was
can't knock
neck
that
and
choice.
neck
Yeah.
for me in that as well. Great. Well, you know what? I think that we've done it. I think that we've
Incredible.
Whatever this experiment was, a success or a failure, like it is complete.
I feel like this pilot could get a full season order. At the very least, a half season order. Like, it's...
Let's absolutely get a full season order of
Yes.
this. So before we say our goodbyes, I, of course, am at Eric Gildy on, all of the things, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. You can find me. Ask me to do a drawing of a thing like Ellen does with her at Ellen Draws Baseball account on Instagram. I will definitely advertise her stuff. And she is also, at Ellen Adair, like there's an underscore in there on one of them, and at Ellen Adair G on like one of the other ones of them. You can figure it out. And all of that is really just a preface to, I think, really one of the better follows on Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you.
Which is you, yes. So where can people find you Mr. Scotty T on the social medias to get your very good takes on sports, on new releases of music and movies. I don't understand how you have the time to absorb the content that you do.
I don't sleep. The thing is, I just don't sleep. And when I do sleep, I regret it. And you can find my takes about my sleep cycle and all the things that Eric mentioned at OG Scotty T on Twitter and Instagram. You will find everything from Loki stuff to sports card related stories. It will all be there. If you enjoyed these takes and want to keep hearing them in an audio-based form, I have a comic book based podcast called The Infinity Podcast, where Patrick Willems, Rachel Quirky-Shank, and I dissect comic book related media and how it intersects with pop culture.
It's wonderful. It uses a lot of like comic book related stuff as a launch pad to talk about any number of topics, and is really one of my favorite podcasts.
I so appreciate that. And Eric has been a guest on a podcast that is coming back like any minute now. Like I literally have the episode Eric and Nat Cassidy did queued up of And the Best Picture Is, where we talk about a movie that should win Best Picture and won't ever really get a chance to do so. That is what it's going to
really
be in
fun.
the rebooted format. And we did The Boys from County Hell, and Eric absolutely crushed it. It's a great movie. Please look out for that episode because I'm super proud of it. And Eric killed it because of course he did. He's amazing.
Yay, killing stuff. So, yeah, this is our first attempt to do this replay review. If you are a regular listener of the show, if you have feedback on what we should do, if you have thoughts, let us know. This is a work in progress, and we are just excited to continue talking about baseball movies of all kinds and maybe like bringing some other people into the fold. And I firmly do believe that for our very next episode, I apologize for people who are listening, tuned in, thinking that they were going to be getting a Little Big League episode, but that will be the next episode. But we just, we're actors and schedules change on a dime, and this is one of those cases. But we wanted to roll with it and bring you something new and something different, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Let us know what you think. Go ahead and get on that Apple, iTunes, whatever you call it. Give us a rating, give us a review. We really appreciate that. It does very much help us out when that happens. So one last thing before we go is that I do have a couple of other cards to give to you.
What?
Yep.
How does
that
my
is
cup
the
runneth
case.
over?
Your cup runneth over. So in the spirit of Rocket Stedman and cool pitcher names, I've decided to give you a 1990 Don Russ card of Red Sox pitcher Oil Can Boyd.
I don't remember this person existing. This is amazing.
Well, you know it now.
Why is this not my rap name? This is incredible.
I am also going to give you a 1990 Greg Maddux Cubs card that is a classic baseball card and is full-on 90s.
Holy cow.
This is like some major purple neon, like you can see the Umbros.
Like today, this color pattern would be a sought-after refractor parallel. It's that loud and awesome. Holy cow.
And then last but not least, I'm going to give you one of the treasures of my childhood collection.
What?
Which is the Tony Gwynn memorable moments Kmart card.
Yo! Tony! Tony from Kmart!
So there you go.
Oh my god.
Use them well.
These are going straight into the PC. These are personal collection items. That's
Enjoy.
it. Wow.
And we will see you next time, or you will hear us next time. That is probably the more likely case on our next episode of Take Me Into the Ball Game. Bye, guys.
Throw the big stinking cheddar.
The home team, if they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball.